Intro. Have you ever felt trapped inside your own mind? Like no matter how hard you try, the thoughts keep circling back, replaying conversations you can't change, worrying about futures that may never come, inventing pain that doesn't even exist yet? That is what overthinking does. It doesn't just steal your peace, it builds walls. Walls that close in tighter the longer you sit in them, until your own mind becomes a prison. But here's the truth. The Stoics saw this problem nearly 2,000 years ago. Seneca, the Roman philosopher, wrote a line that cuts straight through centuries and still lands like lightning today. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Think about that. Most of the pain you feel is not from what actually happened. It's from what you imagined might happen. That job interview tomorrow. That message you're afraid of sending. That conversation you keep replaying from last week. You suffer it 10 times in your head before you ever face it once in real life. The Stoics knew that this mental cycle weakens us. Marcus Aurelius called it living as if you were going to live forever. We waste life rehearsing pain that never arrives, instead of stepping into the present moment, where clarity lives. This is why the Stoics drew a line. Reflection. The ability to think, to learn, to understand, that's useful. But overthinking? That is when thought becomes torment. And unless we recognize that line, we stay chained in a prison built from our own fears. In this video, we're going to explore exactly how Stoic wisdom shows us the way out of those chains. We'll see why overthinking blinds us, what Seneca and Marcus taught about it, and how you can turn endless mental loops into clarity and strength. Before we dive into the lessons, take a second to subscribe to Legacy of Thinkers. This channel is dedicated to ancient wisdom that still has the power to change modern lives. If you've ever wanted philosophy you can actually use, not just read about, this is where you'll find it. Hit that button, and let's step together into the wisdom of the Stoics. Section 1. Recognizing the trap of overthinking. Overthinking rarely announces itself with a loud crash. It creeps in quietly, like a whisper that refuses to leave. You're lying in bed, the lights are off, and suddenly your mind replays that awkward comment you made at work 3 weeks ago. Or maybe it drags you into tomorrow, forcing you to live through a meeting that hasn't even happened yet. That's the trap. It convinces you that by running the tape in your head, you're preparing, but in reality, you're just draining your energy before the real moment even arrives. The Stoics understood this. They knew that not all thinking is the same. Reflection is powerful. It teaches us. It sharpens our judgment. It helps us learn from the past. But overthinking? That is thinking without an exit. It loops endlessly, circling the same what if questions, creating a fog that grows thicker the more we fight it. Think of it like quicksand. The harder you struggle against it, the deeper you sink. You replay a conversation once, twice, 100 times. You imagine every possible failure before you've even taken the first step. And instead of preparing you, it paralyzes you. You're so busy rehearsing disaster that you never move toward action. Marcus Aurelius warned against this mental trap. He wrote in his Meditations, "Do not let your imagination be crushed by life as a whole. Stick with the situation at hand." In other words, don't live 10 lives in your mind before you've lived even one in reality. When you recognize the difference between reflection and overthinking, you begin to see the bars of the prison for what they are, thoughts, not facts. And once you see the prison, you can begin to choose freedom. Section 2. The Stoic Quote That Sets You Free. Seneca gave us a sentence that feels almost like a key slipping quietly into the lock of your mind. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Think about the weight of those words. Every time you dreaded a conversation. Every sleepless night you spent fearing a future that never arrived. Every moment you felt your chest tighten at the thought of rejection. Most of that pain never belonged to the real world. It lived only in your imagination. It's like standing at the edge of a shadow and mistaking it for a monster. The shadow looks bigger, scarier, more dangerous than it really is. But once the light shifts, you see it for what it is, only a shape, harmless, powerless. That's what the Stoic quote does. It shines the light. When you realize that most of your suffering comes from imagined scenarios, the prison bars start to bend. You see that the interview you're afraid of has not happened yet. The message you're avoiding has not been read or rejected. The failure you're convinced is inevitable may never come at all. The Stoics weren't telling us to stop thinking. They were telling us to stop torturing ourselves with fictions. Seneca himself faced exile, illness, and the possibility of death. Yet he understood that the mind can multiply pain far beyond what life ever delivers. And if you can train yourself to separate imagination from reality, you cut your suffering in half, sometimes more. Freedom begins here, not with changing the world outside, but with reclaiming the space inside your head. That is the gift hidden inside Seneca's words. Section 3. Turning overthinking into reflection. The Stoics never told us to silence the mind completely. They knew thought itself could be a tool, but only if it was shaped, sharpened, and directed. The difference between overthinking and reflection is the difference between drowning in a storm and learning how to sail through it. Reflection asks, what happened? What can I learn? What action can I take now? It has an ending, a purpose, a way forward. Overthinking, on the other hand, has no exit. It circles the same fear again and again, until clarity is lost. Seneca journaled. Marcus Aurelius filled entire notebooks with private reflections, not to obsess over mistakes but to extract meaning from them. When Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength," he was showing us a practice. Instead of replaying the past endlessly, he turned his gaze inward, separating what was within his control from what was not. You can do the same. The next time you feel the spiral of overthinking begin, pause and write the thought down. Ask yourself, is this a lesson or a loop? Is this helping me decide, or just keeping me afraid? That simple act transforms raw, anxious thought into structured reflection. It's like turning noise into music. The sounds are the same, but when arranged with intention, they become something that strengthens instead of weakens. Reflection builds resilience, teaches patience, and clears the fog. Overthinking only deepens it. The Stoics remind us that our minds are not prisons by nature. They only become prisons when we lock ourselves inside. Reflection is the key that opens the door. Section 4. Ancient wisdom in modern chaos. It's easy to dismiss ancient philosophy as something carved into marble, frozen in dusty books, far removed from our daily struggles. But the truth is, Stoic wisdom has never been more relevant than it is today. The ancients didn't live with buzzing phones, endless notifications, or social media feeds designed to hijack attention, but they did live with uncertainty, fear, and chaos. And human nature hasn't changed. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations in a war camp, surrounded by enemies and plagued by disease, he wasn't writing for historians. He was writing for himself, to survive his own storms. His words echo perfectly into our modern noise. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Think about how often we do this. We treat an unanswered email like a personal rejection. We turn a delayed text into a story about abandonment. We let our minds build entire catastrophes from the smallest sparks. But the Stoics remind us, it's not the event, it's our judgment of the event that creates the suffering. So how do we apply this in modern life? When work feels overwhelming, instead of spiraling into what ifs, choose one clear action and take it. When a relationship feels uncertain, resist inventing stories in your head. Ask, clarify, communicate. When the future feels frightening, remember Epictetus' question: is this within my control? If not, let it go. If yes, act. Ancient wisdom cuts through modern chaos not by giving us new tricks, but by reminding us of an old truth. Peace is not found in the world outside, but in the mastery of the world within. That's as practical in a Roman battlefield as it is in a 21st century office cubicle. Outro. Overthinking is a prison. Reflection is the key. If tonight's message landed with you, don't let it fade when the video ends. Take one small action now. Name the imagined fear that's been draining you, and write the single step you'll take in the real world this week. Action turns fog into ground. If this helped you breathe a little easier, tap like. It tells the algorithm this video is worth showing to more people who need it. And if someone in your life is wrestling with their mind, share this with them. You might become the reason their night gets lighter. I want to hear from you. Comment below with this prompt. One imagined fear I'm releasing tonight is underscore 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 underscore. And one real action I'll take is underscore 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 underscore. Reading each other's commitments turns insight into momentum. I'll be in the comments with you. For more wisdom you can actually use, not just admire. Subscribe to Legacy of Thinkers and turn on notifications. We post practical Stoic tools, ancient insights, and modern applications that help you live with clarity, courage, and calm. If you've been searching for a place where philosophy meets real life, you've found your people. Before you go, a 24-hour challenge for the next day. Whenever you catch yourself spiraling, ask, is this a lesson or a loop? If it's a loop, pause and pick one tiny action you can take within your control. Repeat. That is how chains start to break, link by link. Thank you for watching and for building this community of thoughtful, brave humans. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to Legacy of Thinkers. I'll see you in the next episode, lighter, clearer, and a little more free.